What comes to your mind when you hear the name Bruce Lee? For most people, it's speed, strength, the iconic yells, the dazzling kicks that rewrote cinema history. But here's the truth. Bruce Lee was not only a fighter. He was a philosopher, a thinker, a man who looked at the chaos of life and distilled it into principles that still inspire millions today. This video is not about fight scenes. It's about philosophy. It's about how a boy born during wartime in Hong Kong, who struggled with identity, rejection, and constant challenges, turned those struggles into wisdom that outlived him. Bruce didn't just punch and kick his way through life, he thought his way through it. He lived as a student of philosophy, blending East and West, tradition and rebellion, discipline and freedom. And his message? It's simple but powerful. You don't need to imitate anyone else. You don't need to wear masks. You don't need to follow someone else's rules. Life is about becoming who you are, fully, freely, without fear. So let's begin with the most famous lesson of Bruce Lee's philosophy, a phrase so simple yet so deep that it became immortal. You've heard it before, but have you really understood it? Lesson 1. Be water, my friend. In a small television interview in 1971, Bruce Lee sat across from Canadian journalist Pierre Berton. The world had not yet seen Enter the Dragon. He wasn't a global superstar yet. He was just Bruce, intense, restless, searching. When Berton asked him about his philosophy, Bruce leaned forward and with calm eyes, he said the words that became immortal. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put it into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. Those words were not just about martial arts. They were about life. Bruce had grown up between worlds, born in San Francisco, raised in Hong Kong, caught between Chinese tradition and Western modernity. He was always the outsider. Too Western for some Chinese, too Chinese for Americans, too brash for the traditional martial arts masters, too unpolished for Hollywood. Everywhere he went, he was told he didn't belong. So what did he do? He became water. Water does not fight the shape of its container. It adapts. It doesn't cling to one form. It flows, changes, moves forward. That was Bruce's answer to life. Don't cling. Don't resist. Adapt. Flow. How he lived it. Bruce didn't just preach this idea. He lived it in every part of his journey. When he faced racism in Hollywood, being told that an Asian man could never be a lead actor, he didn't stop. He started teaching martial arts to anyone willing to learn, breaking traditions that said only Chinese could be taught kung fu. When masters challenged him, he still moved forward, adapting his art, stripping away the rigid forms, creating something new. Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. To Bruce, Jeet Kune Do wasn't just a fighting style, it was a rejection of style itself. He said, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is essentially your own. That's water, taking shape but never being trapped by it. What it means for us. Think about your own life. How many times have you been told, this is how it should be done? This is the tradition. This is the way we've always done it. How often have you forced yourself into shapes that didn't fit you, just to please others? A job you hate, a relationship that suffocates you, a dream you abandoned because it didn't fit the container society gave you. Bruce's message is this: you don't have to break everything in anger. You just have to flow. Like water, you can adapt, move, and eventually wear down even the hardest rock. Water looks soft, but it is unstoppable. It carves valleys, splits mountains, sustains life. And so can you, if you stop clinging to rigid forms and start flowing with truth. The first lesson. Bruce Lee's first and most powerful teaching is simple. Don't be rigid, be adaptable. Don't be trapped, be free. Life will put you in many containers, roles, jobs, expectations. But remember, you are not the container. You are the water. Flow when you must, crash when you need to. Always keep moving forward.
Lesson 2. Simplicity is key. Bruce Lee believed that simplicity was the highest form of sophistication, not just in fighting, but in life itself. He once said, "It's not the daily increase, but daily decrease. Hack away at the unessential." At first glance, it sounds obvious, but if you look closer, you'll see how radical this idea really was, especially in a world obsessed with adding more. More moves, more possessions, more distractions. Bruce didn't want more. He wanted truth, and truth to him was always simple. Against tradition. When Bruce first began teaching martial arts in the United States, many traditional masters mocked him. They said he was breaking the sacred rules of Kung Fu. They accused him of disrespecting centuries of practice. Why? Because Bruce refused to teach forms for the sake of tradition. He wasn't interested in memorizing hundreds of techniques just to say you knew them. He cared only about what worked. If a move was effective, he kept it. If it wasn't, he discarded it, no matter how many generations had passed it down. Imagine the courage this required. In Chinese martial arts, tradition is everything. It is honor, family, history. But Bruce saw that tradition without purpose is a cage. He didn't want cages. He wanted freedom. So he cut away. He simplified. This is how Jeet Kune Do was born, not as a new style, but as an anti-style, a philosophy of reduction, a constant stripping down to the essence. He described it as the art of fighting without fighting. And people hated him for it. But Bruce knew the more you simplify, the closer you get to truth. In training and in life. Bruce applied the same principle to his training. While others did endless repetitions of traditional routines, Bruce built his body with a mix of weightlifting, calisthenics, running, and even studying Western boxing. He didn't limit himself to one discipline. He studied fencing for its footwork, wrestling for its grappling, karate for its direct strikes. But he never got lost in complexity. He was always asking, "Does this help me?" If yes, he kept it. If not, he let it go. His workouts were famously brutal, but efficient. No wasted movement, no wasted time. He could train for hours, but every exercise had a purpose. And outside of fighting, he lived the same way. He refused to clutter his life with distractions. His journals are filled with reminders. Focus on essentials. Cut away illusions. Simplicity brings clarity. Writing it down. Bruce was not just a fighter, he was also a relentless writer. Thousands of pages of notes, reflections, and philosophies filled his notebooks. In one entry, he wrote, "Simplicity is the key to brilliance." Think about that. In a world that tells us to chase more followers, more money, more possessions, Bruce reminds us that brilliance isn't found in piling on, it's found in subtraction. It's not about how much you can add to your life, it's about how much you can cut away. What it means for us. Look at your own life. How many things do you hold on to, not because they serve you, but because tradition or habit says you should? A job that drains you but feels safe. A relationship that no longer grows but feels comfortable. A daily routine stuffed with distractions that add no real value. We live in an age of constant addition. Notifications, tasks, responsibilities. Everyone tells you to add more, hustle harder, do more, buy more, learn more, and yet we feel more lost than ever. Bruce's lesson is a reminder that clarity comes from cutting away, not piling on. A story from the set. Even in Hollywood, Bruce fought for simplicity. When filming fight scenes, directors often wanted flashy, exaggerated moves to impress the audience. But Bruce resisted. He would tell them, "A fight is not about showing off, it is about winning." In one famous scene from Enter the Dragon, he insisted on a simple straight punch instead of a fancy spin kick. Why? Because it was faster, more direct, more real. It wasn't about looking good, it was about being true. That's why his fights felt different. They weren't dances, they were raw, efficient, alive. The second lesson. Simplicity is not laziness. It is not doing less for the sake of comfort. It is doing only what matters and doing it with full intensity. Bruce's philosophy of simplicity challenges us to examine our own lives. What are we clinging to just because of tradition? What are we repeating because everyone else does it? What can we strip away to reveal what truly matters? The second lesson of Bruce Lee is this: simplicity is not the absence of complexity, it is the presence of clarity. Cut away the noise, cut away the lies, cut away the excess. What remains is you, the real you, the brilliant you.
Lesson 3. Discipline over motivation. Motivation is exciting. It's the spark that gets you started. But Bruce Lee knew something deeper. Sparks fade. Real fire comes from discipline. He once said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." That line isn't about talent. It's about repetition. It's about doing the work when no one is watching. It's about building habits so strong that they become part of your nature. The relentless routine. Bruce's daily life was a testament to discipline. His journals revealed schedules that would make most people tremble. A typical day included running several miles in the morning, hours of martial arts drills, weightlifting and calisthenics, studying philosophy and writing notes, teaching students in his gym, then more training late at night. And this wasn't just for show. Bruce believed that the body and mind were connected, and to train one was to train the other. He kept meticulous records of his workouts, sets, reps, times, everything tracked with precision. He treated self-improvement like science. Imagine it. While most actors partied after filming, Bruce was in his home gym, sweating, drilling punches into a heavy bag, practicing kicks until his legs ached. Motivation gets you to the gym once. Discipline keeps you there for years. Student of everything. But Bruce's discipline wasn't limited to his body. He trained his mind with the same intensity. He devoured philosophy, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Nietzsche, Krishnamurti. His notebooks were filled with reflections on human nature, self-expression, and freedom. He didn't just read, he applied. For example, Krishnamurti's teaching about freedom from conditioning became central to Bruce's own philosophy. He didn't want to be bound by tradition, by culture, by other people's rules. So he practiced freedom through discipline, constantly questioning, testing, refining. Even in language, he was relentless. He wrote in English, Cantonese, and sometimes a mix of both. He wanted clarity. He wanted precision. His mind was a muscle, and he trained it daily. The pain behind the glory. What people rarely see is how much suffering discipline required. In 1970, Bruce injured his back during training. Doctors told him he might never kick again. For many, that would be the end. But for Bruce, it was a test. During his long recovery, lying flat for months, he didn't give up. He read. He wrote. He refined his philosophy. He began drafting his famous book, Tao of Jeet Kune Do. The injury could have ended his career. Instead, discipline turned it into a source of wisdom. This is the key. Bruce didn't rely on feelings. He didn't wait for inspiration. He built routines that carried him even when his body broke. Discipline versus motivation. Ask yourself, how many times have you started something with excitement, only to quit when the spark faded? The new workout plan, the new business idea, the new promise to start fresh on Monday. Bruce's life shows us that motivation is not enough. Motivation is like the wind. It comes and goes. Discipline is the ground beneath your feet. It's steady, reliable, solid. On set and off. Even in Hollywood, Bruce's discipline was legendary. When filming Enter the Dragon, he insisted on doing his own stunts. Not because it looked cool, but because it was real. He drilled each movement hundreds of times before stepping in front of the camera. Cast members recalled how he would arrive on set early, warmed up, already glistening with sweat. He never waited for action to start working. He was always working. And when the camera stopped rolling, he went right back to training. Discipline was not an act. It was his way of life. The third lesson. The third lesson of Bruce Lee's philosophy is this: discipline is freedom. It sounds like a paradox, but it's true. Motivation makes you a slave to your feelings. Discipline sets you free from them. Bruce didn't trust inspiration. He trusted structure. He trusted routines. He trusted the slow, grinding power of consistency. So the question for us is simple. Do we want to live by sparks that burn out, or by fires that keep burning? Bruce's answer was clear. Build the fire. Keep it alive. Practice your one kick 10,000 times. Not for perfection, but for freedom.
Lesson 4. Breaking traditions. Tradition can be beautiful. It connects us to our roots, to those who came before. But tradition can also be a cage, and Bruce Lee hated cages. He once wrote, "Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own." That simple sentence was both a philosophy and a rebellion, because to follow it meant breaking rules that many people believed were sacred. Fighting the martial arts establishment. In the early 1960s, martial arts in America were divided into strict styles: karate, kung fu, taekwondo, judo. Each had its own schools, its own rituals, its own masters. Students were told to respect the style above all else. But Bruce asked, why choose one? Why force yourself into a box when the world is bigger? He studied everything he could find: Wing Chun, Western boxing, fencing, wrestling. He didn't care where a technique came from. If it worked, he used it. If it didn't, he threw it away. This was shocking. Traditionalists accused him of disrespect. Some even challenged him to fights, believing he was corrupting the purity of martial arts. Bruce accepted those challenges and won. But it wasn't just about fighting styles. It was about freedom. He wanted students to express themselves, not copy someone else's form. He told them, ultimately, martial art means honestly expressing yourself. The closed-door rule. Bruce also broke another tradition, the rule that Chinese martial arts could only be taught to Chinese students. At that time, many masters believed teaching outsiders was a betrayal of culture. But Bruce didn't care about race. To him, martial arts were for everyone. So he opened his school to anyone who was willing to learn. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic. This enraged the local martial arts community. In 1964, a group of elders confronted Bruce and demanded that he stop teaching non-Chinese students. Bruce refused. They gave him an ultimatum. If he wanted to continue, he had to fight. If he lost, he would have to close his school. Bruce accepted. The fight was against Wang Jackman, a respected martial artist. It was brutal, fast, and decisive. Bruce won. But he wasn't satisfied. He felt the fight had taken too long. That experience pushed him to refine his philosophy even further, stripping down movements, focusing only on what was direct and efficient. The result was Jeet Kune Do, the way of intercepting fist. Not a style, not a system, a living, evolving philosophy. Hollywood barriers. Bruce's fight against tradition didn't stop in the dojo. When he turned to Hollywood, he ran into another wall: racism. In the 1960s, Asian actors were rarely given serious roles. They were background characters, stereotypes, villains with broken English. And sometimes white actors wore makeup to play Asians. Bruce wanted to change that. He auditioned for roles, but producers told him he was too Chinese for American audiences. He famously pitched a show called The Warrior, about a wandering martial artist in the Wild West. The studio loved the idea, but gave the lead role to David Carradine, a white actor, in what became Kung Fu. That betrayal stung deeply, but Bruce didn't give up. Instead, he went back to Hong Kong, where he became a superstar with films like The Big Boss and Fist of Fury. His success was so massive that Hollywood had no choice but to call him back. And when he returned, he kicked the door wide open with Enter the Dragon. Lessons from rebellion. Bruce Lee's rebellion against tradition teaches us something profound. If he had stayed in the box of Wing Chun, he would never have created Jeet Kune Do. If he had obeyed the elders, he would never have opened martial arts to the world. If he had accepted Hollywood's racism, he would never have become a global icon. Every step of his journey required him to say no to what was expected. Every breakthrough came from breaking rules. But notice, he didn't reject tradition out of arrogance. He respected the past. He just refused to let the past dictate the future. The fourth lesson. The fourth lesson of Bruce Lee's philosophy is this: do not worship tradition. Test it. Tradition should be a guide, not a prison. Use what works, discard what doesn't, and always add what is uniquely your own. Because in the end, Bruce wasn't just teaching martial arts. He was teaching life. Don't copy, don't conform, don't accept cages, no matter how old or respected they are. The question for us is simple. Were we still obeying rules that no longer serve us? What traditions keep us from growing? And what would happen if we finally had the courage to break them? Bruce's answer was clear. Break free, express yourself, be water. Lesson 5. The philosophy of flow in life. Bruce Lee was famous for saying, "Be water, my friend." To many, it sounds poetic. To him, it was a way of living. The nature of water. Think about water. It is soft, yet it wears down rock. It flows around obstacles, yet it can crash with unstoppable force. It takes the shape of any container, yet it is never bound by one. For Bruce, this was the perfect metaphor for life. He saw that most people live rigidly, bound by habits, traditions, and fears. They resist change. They cling to what is safe. But in doing so, they break when pressure comes. Water doesn't break. It adapts. It bends. It flows. Beyond martial arts. Bruce's insight came from fighting, but he applied it everywhere. In training, if an opponent blocked a strike, he flowed into another movement. No hesitation, no wasted energy. But outside the dojo, he lived the same way. When Hollywood rejected him for being too Chinese, he flowed back to Hong Kong and made movies that turned him into a global star. When a back injury threatened to end his career, he flowed into philosophy and writing, producing insights that outlived him. His life was proof of his teaching. Obstacles are not walls. They are invitations to flow. Freedom through flexibility. Bruce wrote in his notes, "Flow in the living moment. We are always in a process of becoming." He believed that clinging to fixed identities, "I am this, I am that," is a trap. Life is not static, it is dynamic. To grow, you must be willing to let go of who you were yesterday. Think about it. How often do we stay stuck because we refuse to change? A job that no longer excites us, a relationship that no longer gives life, a routine that no longer challenges us. Bruce would say, don't fight change, flow with it, adapt, become. Lessons for modern life. Today, his philosophy is more relevant than ever. Technology changes overnight. Careers vanish and reappear. Social norms shift faster than history books can keep up. If you are rigid, you will break. If you are fluid, you will thrive. Bruce didn't mean to live without values. He meant to live without fear of transformation. To hold principles but not cages. To move, to grow, to remain free. The courage to let go. One of the hardest lessons Bruce taught is this: to flow, you must let go. Let go of the need for certainty. Let go of the obsession with control. Let go of the illusion of permanence. He once said, "If you always put limits on everything you do, physical or anything else, it will spread into your work and into your life. There are no limits. There are only plateaus, and you must not stay there. You must go beyond them." That's the essence of flow. Never stay still too long. Don't get comfortable. Don't stop becoming. So ask yourself, where in your life are you clinging to a shape that no longer fits you? Where are you rigid when you could be fluid? Where are you trying to be the rock when you should be the water? Bruce's message echoes like a challenge. Don't just exist. Flow. Transform. Live. Bruce Lee died in 1973 at just 32 years old. His life was brief, but like lightning in a storm, it lit up the sky, and the world has never forgotten. To this day, people still study his movies. They still quote his words. They still look at him not just as a fighter, but as a philosopher, a poet of movement,
a man who dared to redefine what it meant to live fully. Beyond the fighter. Bruce's kicks and punches made him famous, but his real legacy isn't the fight scenes, it's the philosophy behind them. He taught us that life requires courage to face pain. Through pain, you find your true self. You must break free from cages, traditions, and expectations. Breaking traditions. Discipline matters more than fleeting motivation. Discipline over motivation. True freedom comes when you live like water, adaptable, flowing, always becoming. Philosophy of flow. These weren't lessons meant only for martial artists. They were meant for everyone, for writers, builders, parents, dreamers, anyone struggling against limits, real or imagined. The man behind the legend. It's easy to mythologize Bruce Lee, to paint him as superhuman. But remember, he was human. He battled racism. He endured rejection. He suffered a devastating injury. He wrestled with doubt. What made him extraordinary wasn't that he avoided struggle, but that he used struggle as fuel. His philosophy wasn't abstract theory. It was born from scars. Every lesson we've explored came from lived experience, from sweat, from blood, from heartbreak, from triumph. A global ripple. Bruce Lee changed not only martial arts, but also cinema, culture, and even identity. He gave Asian actors a face of dignity and strength on the world stage. He opened doors that had been bolted shut. He showed millions that someone who looked like him could be a hero, not a sidekick, not a stereotype, but the star. And beyond race or culture, he spoke to something universal, the hunger to express yourself, to live authentically, to refuse cages. That is why decades later, his words still resonate, because he was speaking to the human condition itself. A challenge to us. But here's the real question. What do we do with Bruce Lee's legacy? Do we just admire it, or do we live it? It's easy to hang his poster on a wall. It's harder to practice his principles in daily life. Ask yourself, are you facing your pain or avoiding it? Are you following your own path or living in cages others built? Are you disciplined or only motivated when it's convenient? Are you flowing with change or resisting it until you break? Bruce's life was short, yours is not over, but time is passing. His voice echoes like a challenge across the years. Don't waste your life. Don't wait. Live now. The final lesson. The final lesson of Bruce Lee's philosophy is this: to live is to express yourself fully, without fear, without limits, without apology. Be water. Be free. Be you. And when you feel stuck, when you doubt, when you wonder if you can endure, remember Bruce. Remember a boy who was bullied, rejected, dismissed, who became a man that inspired the world. His story is proof that greatness is not about time. It is about intensity, authenticity, and the courage to live with nothing held back. So here's the truth, my friend. Bruce Lee is gone, but his philosophy is not. It is here, waiting for you. Take it, live it, flow with it, and maybe one day your life will shine like his, brief or long, but unforgettable.